are live. Welcome back, Nic. Today we are going to be talking all things Kambo. And just to get started, Nic is a sacred intimacy mentor and a men's work coach, plant medicine and breathwork facilitator. Since 2015, he has traveled the world, spending extended periods of time in jungles, ashrams, silence and darkness, exploring his own healing path and seeking out various mentors, healers, and coaches. Nic has also studied and facilitated plant medicine and breathwork, as well as tantra and sacred intimacy with some of the world's most renowned teachers. So using these tools that helped him rise out of the ashes, Nic holds workshops around the world and coaches both individuals and couples, supporting people on their healing journey to integrate and deepen their relationship with themselves and each other. So Nic, I'm so excited to have you back. And I mean, in some ways, we kind of met doing this stuff. Well, I didn't. I kind of watched you and my friend at the time. But let's chat about Kambo. First off, what is Kambo? What is frog poison? How do people get into this? And I'm excited to dive in and just let you share your expertise on this.
Thanks for having me back. Nice to see you again. Yeah, actually, the first time we met, like 2016, I think, in Peru. Mm-hmm. I had sat with the medicine maybe 3 times. I heard about it for the first time when I was in Guatemala a few months earlier and came across this Kambo circle, as they call them. And I didn't know what it was, but I felt this intense yearning almost of I want to try that. And actually, I feel really deeply connected to it. And at the time, I didn't really understand what that feeling was. And my intuition was like, I wasn't connected to myself at all. And there was just this overwhelming, I want to see this medicine. I want to work with it, or I want to at least experience it. Massive synchronicities happened, and I ended up in the Sacred Valley, which is where we met. And I saw the flyer for this frog ceremony, contacted the guy, had dinner with him. He explained to me what it was. The next day we did it. And in the process of sitting with the frog, I swore I would never do this again. This is the most horrible fucking thing I'd ever experienced. And why would anybody ever do it? And I was actually disappointed, because I was like, I really wanted to work with this, but actually I'm quite literally never going to do this again. And then maybe 20 minutes after the session, I just felt this almost like a wave of euphoria and of like, oh wow. For as intense as that was, I feel fantastic. And so then, I mean, it's not something that you do regularly. And if you haven't experienced it, you'll understand why once you do. It's incredibly uncomfortable. It sucks, but it has incredible benefits. And after the first time I did it, it was kind of like this yoga high after the first time you do a Bikram class, and you're just like, whoa. So I did it a few times, and then we actually met at this healing center where I helped the guy that served me, and we served a bunch of brothers there. And I was able to just witness the power of the medicine for the first time, not receiving it myself. And from there, I took it. I went to the jungle, and then I did it a bunch more times, and I brought a stick with me, and I went back home to Berlin. And I never wanted to serve other people. I knew that it was too powerful, and I just wanted to serve myself, and I did. And the first time I ever served myself, I had fainted. And I didn't have anybody watching me. I was like, okay, this is a bit silly. There was a Brazilian shaman in town, and I wanted to go and receive the medicine from him. I did that. And the way he did it, the way they do it in the jungle is very different to the way that is needed to be done in the West. And jungle style is basically, you get the medicine and then see you later. And you take care of it's your shit, you deal with it. So when these guys come from the jungle into the West, you have all these people with different diets and different psychology and different trauma, and they sit down and the shaman's like, okay, here's your medicine, see you later. And the people are like, well, fuck, well, what do I do? How does this work? So I experienced this kind of jungle style in the city, knowing that this wasn't the safest way to do it. And yeah, a bunch of different things happened that shouldn't have happened. And I just had this feeling of like, okay, I need to take my understanding of Western trauma and diet and healing and whatever, and learn and then bring it back to do it in a safer way. I ended back up in the jungle. I trained with a brother that first ever served me. I trained with a Maasai tribe just outside of Iquitos. We spent more than a week dieting. Every day would serve the medicine or receive the medicine. I really connected to the spirit of the frog, and we went and collected the medicine, harvested it, and just spent time with the frog, which was a really profound experience. And I still had this doubt about its power, about my willingness to serve other people. And there was one instance where I served this guy. He was a former heroin addict. And the next morning he came up to me and he said, thank you for showing me a happiness I've never experienced before. I was like, oh, okay. So there is a need for this. And there is a need for people to do it safely and with knowledge. And that's kind of how it started. And wherever I went on my travels, people would come to me and like, hey, do you know anything about Kambo? Or have you ever heard of Kambo? And it came to me. I didn't seek it out. And it's kind of been that way now for 5 years. So
That's awesome.
That was a very long answer to maybe not even to a specific question.
It was perfect. Okay, so I've heard it called Kambo, different. Is there a like correct pronunciation, or is it kind of dependent upon where in the world you are? Because I've called it both.
It's a little bit of tomato.
Okay, because I'm like,
I call it Kambo.
Okay, because that's what I thought it was called,
Yeah.
Kambo. Like maybe like when I was in Peru, and then when I was in Mexico, they call it Kambo. So tomato.
So some people call it sapo.
Okay, I've heard it called
sapo. Yeah, it's a mistranslated term. Sapo means toad in Spanish. And it's actually a tree frog. It's a giant waxy monkey tree frog, called the Philomedusa bicolor. So it's about the size, I don't know if you can see it, it's about the size of my fist. It's a super bright green, super beautiful creature. It has no predators. It's very gentle and docile. You can walk up, you can pick it up, put it on your shoulder and walk back to camp.
Fun.
And it's a really incredibly beautiful animal. And so, yeah, you can call it Kambo. And basically what it is, it's the secretion off the back of the frog and off its legs. So there's actually a David Attenborough clip, one of those Planet Earth style videos, documentaries, where he's in the jungle and they're filming the frog, and they use it as a sunscreen to protect themselves from the heat of the sun. What it isn't, and this is one of the common misconceptions, it's not a poison, or it's definitely not a venom. A venom is something that is injected or bitten or stung by an animal or an insect or whatever. Anything can be a poison given the dose. You can drink 20 liters of water and you're going to have water poisoning. There's this thing, it's like, oh, you're taking a frog poison and you're making yourself sick. And it's like, technically not. On the deepest possible level, this is a medicine. And there's been a lot of science around it, like trying to kind of break it apart, trying to actually monetize it, to take out the bioactive peptides that are existing within it. And And there are a whole bunch of peptides which cause the body to react in certain ways. So it's psychoactive, meaning that it breaks through the blood-brain barrier. It is not psychedelic, meaning that you're not going to trip, you're not going to have visions. And then these bioactive peptides attach to the opioid receptors, and they cause the body to react in certain ways. So your blood pressure goes up, your heart beats faster, you feel nauseous. There are all these bodily functions that occur, which are part of the process of healing your body on a physical, mental, energetic, and emotional level. It's not like you drink too much alcohol and then you throw up and that's it. It's a completely different thing. And this is why, there are instances of people with stage 4 cancer who have the doctors have said, you're fucked, go home, there's nothing else we can do. The person has done Kambo and they've cured themselves from the cancer. The reason this can happen is because medicine like Kambo and ayahuasca is different to medication. Medication will heal the symptoms. That's what it's designed for. Medication is not designed to cure you, because a healthy patient is no longer a client. Plant medicine is designed to get to the root cause of the issue, which is why it's so fucking uncomfortable, because it makes us face our own shit. It makes us face the trauma that is the cause of the side effect, which comes out as cancer or whatever else. So these types of medicines get to the very root and they pull it up, and it sucks. It's uncomfortable. You can often feel like you're dying. But once that's out, the symptoms are also gone, because the root cause is gone. So it works on a number of levels, on a number of different things, and for each person it's different. It depends on what is needed, what is most needed to heal. And it heals a variety of things. Addictions, it's amazing for people with addictions. Alzheimer's, anxiety and depression, cancer, asthma, works with infertility, diabetes, hepatitis. There is a variety of things that it works with. And because it works on a physical, mental, emotional, energetic level, it's almost like a holistic cleanse.
Yeah, so well said. And that's where I think it's because it's not mainstream and like pharmaceutical, especially in the West, and conversations I've had with people in America where they're like, wait, so you poisoned yourself from a frog and got these results? And I was like, well, technically, and you said it so beautifully, because I think people just naturally, their brain puts things in categories and wants to define something as good or bad. And it's kind of just more of being in the mind kind of a thing, but having more information on how it actually moves through your body, through the peptides, through the purging. And I'd love for you to say more too about the panema piece of Kambo, because that was my experience when I did Kambo this last summer in Mexico. It was kind of like a 4-year funk that I was in, and I was using, like, I do trauma work with myself and my clients, and I have all these tools for emotional healing and all of these things, but nothing was shifting. And I actually have a friend who's a trauma therapist that I was doing sessions with, and she's like, Nicole, you're depressed. Like, she basically was like, you are depressed. And she was kind of like, do you want me to, prescribe you something? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I really am not into prescriptions, and it's not to poo-poo, like, they are very useful for many people, but I know from past experience of doing ayahuasca and different things and stories that I've heard about people healing depression or trauma and different things with plant medicine. I was like, I'm in Mexico. I'm going to like check out in like Playa del Carmen, where it's very nomadic and expat. And I started reaching out to people and asking about, Kambo and ayahuasca. And within the first time, because I did 3 sessions in a row, the first day after I did it, I woke up feeling rested, and that hadn't been for years. That I woke up, like I would sleep like, because I have Hashimoto's, and so my thyroid has been kind of just like wonky, and literally after the first day of doing it, I woke up feeling rested. I was able to eat fruit and not have stomach aches, like a lot of things that like no matter what I was eating or doing, things just weren't shifting. And within one session, and since then, for me, it was life changing. And when people say you can't just snap out of depression, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But after doing Kambo, I think like if someone isn't necessarily prone to mania or bipolar kinds of things, that Kambo can be extremely helpful in helping them shift that emotional, physical state that can happen. Because I had never experienced depression before. So when people would talk about not being able to like just snap out of it, I'd always be like, oh no, just get up and go to the gym. Or like I would like from this like ableism kind of place, like just tell people to like, you know, and before I knew better, and kind of just telling people to move through something. And yeah, so for me, this was like such a big healing experience, and like I want to share it with as many people as possible. And I think for people to understand and really research before, you know, if they feel called to do it, to make sure they are doing it safely as well, but to really understand that there are alternatives to these pharmaceutical drugs that can actually be even harder for a lot of people to come off of afterwards, or keep them from really understanding their own body. And maybe it's like a gut issue, or, you know, or emotional issue, or all these things that play together. And especially with I mean, we could go off on like the food system and all the things too of what we're exposed to, and especially in the West. But yeah, I thank you for sharing like the physical pieces too, because it's through the body that we experience this in general. So I just think there's just so many ways that this can shift people on such a profound level around healing addiction, or deeper emotional stuff. I think was a big experience for me in plant medicine in general, of having bigger emotional shifts, and they last. It's not like when you know, in Western medicine go out like drinking on the weekends or having a glass of wine at night, and that's like a coping or numbing that happens, but it's just masking and helping you cope with your stress levels and the life that maybe isn't in tune with your body and what you actually value. And then going and doing these medicines actually is like kind of like a punch in the face to wake you up. Like, this is actually how you can feel in your body, and like what you can actually experience in your life. So I don't know if you want to like add to that or say more, but I just wanted to share that as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I want to pick out of that. The first one, none of these medicines you do for the experience.
Yeah.
Like if you don't feel cold, then wait. Just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And the problems arise when people run off and be like, oh yeah, what's that one? Oh, okay, I'll do that. Oh, and it's like a shopping list or a bucket list.
Yeah.
And this is when people fuck themselves up. And if you're not ready for it, if you're not cold for it, like just wait. Because the moment you'll know.
Yeah.
And if you're not, there's a very good chance that you're going to go and sit with somebody that you shouldn't. And the problem with Kambo is that you might do it once or 3 times or 10 times and it's the same every time. Or you might see it get done to 1, 2, 5, 10 people and it's the same every time. And then suddenly you're like, oh, fuck it, I can do that. So you go buy a stick off the internet and then you go and serve people. And then the 1 or the 2 times that you've never seen, things happen. And yes, people can die, but it's because it is done in the incorrect method and it's not done safely. And there's a reason people train, and there's a reason people go and diet, and there's a reason that you should not go and sit with somebody that you've never heard of or nobody else has had experience with. So if you do feel called, and if you've met somebody that perhaps you're going to sit with, ask them questions. Where did they train? How long have they been doing it? Where does the medicine come from? How often they sit themselves, and just make sure it's a very safe space. That's the first thing. The second thing is what people don't understand, they shit on. And there's no greater ignorance than to speak negatively about that which you know nothing. And I come across this all the time. Like someone who called me and said, look, I'm going to cancel the session. It's like, yeah, no problem. Can I just ask why? Oh, I spoke to somebody that said I shouldn't do it. Oh, okay. Why shouldn't you? Oh, because they said that, it's dangerous. Have they done it before? No. It's like, okay. Yeah. Right. It's quite common. Yeah. Just on the weekend, I served some guy and his wife didn't want him to do it. It's, why are you interested in that stupid hippie shit? He has the session. He goes back to her. He's like, fuck, this was amazing. And then he messages and he goes, oh, my wife wants to do it next time. So yeah, of course she does. Yeah, right. Because it's just this fear of this, like, I don't know what that is. So it's hippie shit in this case.
To add to that, add to that, when I watched you and my ex do, I had no interest in it the first time I was introduced to it. And it was more, I think, because it was my first time doing ayahuasca, and I was like, I think it was because it was more like last minute and you guys are like, hey, actually we're doing this before the ceremony. And I was like, the story that I forget the guy's name, and I think he's one of your friends that administered it, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he had talked about helping his mom heal from diabetes with Kambo, and I was just like, that sounds great, and then watching you guys like faces pop up and all, I was like, oh hell no. I was like, that is not happening. And it wasn't until I got to Mexico and was in this experience and felt called to do it and started researching it and found someone that had been trained in South America and actually knows the same guy that I met in Peru. And anyway, so I do want to add to that around, like, absolutely, if it's a calling, research it either way. And like, sometimes like a no is a not yet. And like, it's, yeah, just not poo-pooing. Like, I don't feel like I poo-pooed it, but I was definitely not interested in it at the time. So just like adding in that piece where like, we come across things when we're ready for them. And when it's like, I would really believe in timing around people's journeys. And some people can do even like ayahuasca once and be like, I'm good. And that was like what I needed. And other people come back to it as more of like a ritual or a practice. And there's such a big piece around knowing yourself in a way of like, is this the thing that I feel is going to support me with what I need right now? And like, and trusting that, because especially with these medicines, because they are so strong, and our Western way of living and mindset is so disconnected from our bodies, from our spiritual, like real spirituality and plant medicine. I'm sure a lot of people in the jungles in Peru and stuff maybe don't even want to share it with Westerners because they're like, you guys are gonna like hurt somebody with this. So I think there's like a lot of elements around that. So I just wanted to hop that in too.
Yeah, and there's this other thing about a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, so I heard you should do 3 sessions in a moon cycle. And my answer is always the same. It's like, no, you shouldn't do anything. If you do 1 session and it's a successful session and the medicine and you work together, it's beneficial if you do more. Some people come in and it's like, you know what, this is not your medicine. And yes, you felt called to it. And yes, the session went great, but you need something else. Perhaps you need breath work. Perhaps you need ayahuasca. Perhaps you actually just need to go and fucking meditate. Kambo is a tool that can help you, but it's not going to fix your problems and it's not going to solve your problems. It's something that you can have that sporadically can help your situation. It's not something that you do all the time because you think like, because you use it as the crux or the crutch for your healing journey. It's a very beautiful, very powerful medicine. And sometimes people need it once and sometimes they need it multiple times. But don't listen to any stories about you need to do it X amount of times in X amount of days, because it's bullshit. And each person is different. And I'll be the first person to tell you that you need 7 sessions, just as I'll be the first person to tell you that actually this is not your medicine. Mm-hmm. The reasons they say 3 sessions works is because it's an aggregate medicine. So you come in, and especially if it's the first time you've never done it, there's a lot of mental resistance to the sensations that happen.
Yes.
So you're sitting there and you're like, holy shit, I feel hot. Wow,
I feel like I'm going to die. Yeah.
But my ears are going to explode. And there's just it's this unfamiliarity. Did I get that right?
You got it. Nailed it.
Squeezed it out. And it's like, well, what is this? And then you kind of resist the process. And then the second time you come back, so the first time you clear away the first layer of shit, of physical, mental blockages, energetic blockages, you just kind of clear that away. The second time you come back and you go even deeper. If you wait too long, you spend, and say you have the session on day 1 and then you go and you go to a party and then you eat burgers and you drink beers and you get stressed and you're just retoxifying your body. So the next time you come and do it, you're actually not going much deeper. If you're going to do it, speak to your facilitator, but do the second one kind of as quickly as you can in between. So then you go deeper. And then if you need to do a third one, but kind of the idea is that the third one gets to the bottom and scrapes out the rest. Typically 3 is a good amount to do for a lot of people, but it is not a golden rule for everybody. It's something that you need to work with your facilitator, and you need to feel into. And, is this right for me? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so around those lines of like, how many should or shouldn't you do? What, as a facilitator, and I know this is probably like per each person you work with, but where have you seen the biggest results for like yourself or shifts for yourself or others around when you continue to have this as part of your journey, when it's something a tool that you use, whether it's once a year or a couple times a year? What have you found for yourself to be beneficial?
In the beginning, so when I did my dieta, I was in the jungle and we did it every day. I did it every day for 13 days. And it got to it's so intense that the first 3, 4, 5 days, I was just kind of like, oh, fuck this. What am I doing? And then after that, I just kind of became almost excited for it. And from that point on, I was doing it once every 2 or 3 weeks, because I was testing every new stick of medicine that I would use. I would test it. Years later, this year, for instance, I did it once in March, and it was quite intense. And then I waited until August the next time, because I just didn't need to do it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel called to it. And there was a few times where it came up where it was like, you really should, because it's been a few months now. And it's like, I shouldn't. Until I need to do it, until I feel like, okay, now I'm ready, I actually don't need to do it. And then I sat with it again in August, and it absolutely kicked my ass. It was very, in hindsight, it was quite silly the way that I did it. I always serve myself now. In the last 5 years, I've been served by somebody else just twice. So I was always served myself, and I was doing it so regularly that I knew if I gave myself a set amount of points, that's safe and fine. And this time it had been such a large distance of time in between that I served myself one too many. And I was by myself and I fainted and I kind of spilt the bucket of purge all over myself. And thankfully I was against a wall and I kind of was able to stay up. But it was a really beautiful it reflected back to me. It's like, okay, you need to just take this a little bit more seriously now, because I kind of got carried away with, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I've been doing it for so long. And I kind of dropped the ball. And it was just a little reminder of like, no, dude, this is so fucking powerful and you really need to be careful. So then I was in Peru again a couple of months ago, and I sat with somebody else served me, and it was just so beautiful. And it's always intense. It's always uncomfortable. And it's happened a few times before, just when I'm so connected to the medicine that despite the discomfort, the purge is actually super easy, and I can sit there and hold my pose, and I'm not like, in the beginning I was a fucking mess and I'd lie on the ground and I'd moan and complain. And if I saw myself back then from now, I was like, dude, pull your shit together. And now I'm able to just sit there and I just reconnect to the medicine, and it's super beautiful. And I don't need to do it now. I don't feel called to do it, and it'll be a little while before I do. I have other people that come in and, they do it once or twice a year. Maybe they do 3 sessions in a row and they do that once a year. And it's kind of like their yearly detox. And it's super beautiful. And they come in, they've got all these things. A lot of it's energetic as well. You spoke before about Panama. The best way to describe that in the jungle is like a gray cloud that hangs over your head, and just shit doesn't go your way. And there's always something kind of getting in the way of things aligning. And it's just like a gray cloud, like, oh. So they call that Panama in the jungle, and Kambo is really beautiful in clearing that out of your life. And typically now that's the reason that I do it, is when energetically I'm a little bit off, and then I sit once, I have my experience, and then I'm like, boom, I'm back on. So people come, maybe there's some depression, maybe the energy's off, maybe there's some physical things, some allergies, whatever. Maybe they want to quit smoking. Maybe they've got something deeper, multiple sclerosis, something that is really hindering them in their life. And then they come do 1, 2, 3 sessions, and then they leave. And most of the time, whatever it was that they wanted to deal with gets dealt with. And even sometimes it's surprising, and it's like, I'll see somebody 6 months later and they're like, holy shit, man, I've like, from the moment I sat with Kambo, I haven't had a single beer, or I stopped taking drugs, or I stopped smoking. And it's even though that wasn't the intention.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's so interesting. And I know that when I did 3 sessions in a row, that he started with 3 dots, put on 1 just to see how my body would kind of initially react, and then added the next 3. Is there like an immunity piece that comes up where, like, if you do the same amount each time, like if they're closer together, where your body actually needs a little bit more in order to create the same kind of purging, or what does that look like as far as like your body not having the same purging reaction if you're not given more?
So there is a slight tolerance that happens, that if you do it day 1, probably to go deeper, you're going to need at least 1, if not 2 points. The thing about the points is each frog has a different strength. So you can have 2 identical sticks, and it can even, like, typically 1 frog is 1 stick, but sometimes 1 frog is a bit more than a stick, so it's a stick and a half, and then you have to get another frog to do the other half of the stick. So then you've got two different strengths on the one stick. So if some, like, people come to me and they say, oh, well, I always have 4 points. And it's like, yeah, right. But the stick of medicine that I got today, actually 4 points is too much for you. Or actually the stick of medicine I got today, you're going to need at least 7. So it really, there's no set rule. And it also depends on the size of the dot. When I was in the jungle, the indigenous guy picked up a stick off the ground and burnt my arm. And this stick was the size of my little finger. And then he took a swipe of medicine off the back of the frog and put it straight on my arm. And then there was that experience compared to, which is stronger than when I was in Berlin, and the Brazilian guy gave me 11 points because the points were much, much smaller. And so there wasn't as much medicine, and the medicine wasn't fresh. So, I could say that 1 point was stronger than 11, but there are so many different variables that it's just, you can't compare. So every time it is going to be a different strength. But typically, I mean, at least in the way that I do it, if I'm going to sit with somebody for 3 sessions or multiple sessions, and I know that one stick is going to run out in between, then I'll start with a new stick. So we can use, I know that, on the weekend, 3 points was plenty for almost everybody. Some people had 2. This stick that I have, it's super beautiful medicine. People came back the next day for a second session, and I'd give them a second point, or like an extra point. In some cases, as it happened on the weekend, on the first day she had 3 points. On the second day we gave her 2 because she didn't need that extra one. Like, she sat there before and she's very comfortable with the medicine. She knows how it works. And some people, it's the essence of it that really starts to work with them. And for some people, it's almost an easy process, just because they're so connected to it.
Yeah, that was kind of my experience with the medicine, is like, it was definitely uncomfortable, and I was having a lot of, like, my whole body was sweating, like the second and third day, where it was like, I might as well have been sitting under like rain. I've never experienced anything like that. It was amazing. But I just remember, like, I could kind of feel it moving through my body. And yeah, it felt like a cleansing. Like, I don't know if you've ever taken niacin back when I was like, and it's a B vitamin that flushes you out when you take it. It makes you like turn bright red and hot and prickly and sweaty. And that was like the same kind of feeling that I had with it. But yeah, that was one thing that I really liked about my facilitator, that he was like, I'm not going to give you like 6 dots straight off the bat to make you purge and have this experience. He's like, I want it to be working with your body and see how your body reacts to it. So it's like, so you can have an experience like that where you're getting the benefits on all the levels and you're not just sitting there thinking you're going to die the whole time. So yeah, it's super powerful. And from what you've studied and researched and learned from this, like, what are the health concerns where people shouldn't do it? Because I know from what I read, like, if you have like mania or like mental stuff where you can like pop out, that ayahuasca and Kambo can trigger that. So I don't know if there's any specific health concerns that, and like high blood pressure, I think, were the ones that, the big ones. Oh, I think you're muted.
A lot of it is pharmaceuticals. So if you're on a specific type of medication, it can actually really not work well with the medicine. So this is, and some people, they try and hide it. And it's like, it is of no benefit for you to hide that you're taking a pharmaceutical thing. If you come here and you don't tell the facilitator, then you're just going to do everybody a disservice. Anybody that's had a stroke or anything to do with the heart is really, it can be, I mean, all of this stuff you need to speak to your facilitator and just kind of work it out. But a lot of the things, a lot of them are very precautionary, and it's actually okay. And then some of them, it's like, it's an absolutely, like, it's just no need to test. So anything to do with the heart, whether it's heart disease, or any kind of surgery, any kind of, if you have active ulcers in the stomach, it can flare up. Some kind of mental issue, bipolar, any of these things. Epilepsy. I had a guy on the weekend that has epilepsy, and in his case, there is probably a very good benefit to do it. However, there's also a very high chance that he would have a seizure. So, but he's on medication to stop himself from having seizures. So to go, the medication that he's on is stopping the side effect of the problem. So at some point he's going to need to go deeper in to remove the root cause of the issue, rather than just continue to dull the side effects. Anybody that's pregnant, they use it in the jungle as a means of enhancing fertility, but also as an abortion tool. Chemotherapy or radiation treatments. Anybody that's recovering from a major surgical procedure, where the stitches could burst open because there is some inflammation, some swelling. And blood pressure can be an issue, especially if you're on medication. If you have high blood pressure, your blood pressure does increase a lot, and then it also drops a lot. So low blood pressure and high blood pressure can be a problem, especially if there's medication. But other than that, there was a guy in Berlin who used to serve anybody that felt cold, and regardless of their situation, regardless of what they had going on. And we sat down and had dinner once, and we were talking about all the interesting things that have happened, like what are the sessions that have stood out for us the most. And he served a guy, I think he was in his mid-60s, who had dementia. And this guy was on the toilet just kind of shitting and throwing up and doing everything, and then kind of forgetting where he was. And he said it was the most aggravating session he'd ever done, because this guy was, he was in his process. But this facilitator's philosophy was that if you feel called, regardless of what your health status is, then that's the medicine calling you, and I'm going to serve you. Which is, it's an interesting philosophy, but one that worked for this guy.
Yeah. And what was your training like when people are looking for facilitators or people to potentially do this with, like, what kinds of things should people be asking the people, like, if you have someone that's like, you feel called to it, I'm going to give it to anyone, versus someone who is actually going to really get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of your health stuff. Because I think that is like, it's good to be precautionary on any, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's Kambo, like any of these, is really like being your own advocate for, and being really truthful. I saw a documentary of this. There's some Kambo camp kind of thing in Florida here in the States that they have like a whole retreat kind of training thing going on. And I think they said, if you lie, you die. Basically, it's like, they're like, we don't mean to sound like assholes, but like, if you don't tell us what's actually going on with your health, like, you can actually, if you lie, you die, kind of thing, kind of to your point earlier. So when people are looking for like facilitators or training for themselves or different things, what was your experience with that, and what would you recommend for people? So
I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the jungle, and I'd been there before. And there's an organization that it's called the IAKP, and I know a lot of people who have trained with it. I disagree with how they do it. I think it's more of a money-making thing than actually churning out fully qualified individuals. It has its purpose for sure, but I think part of the I mean, it's a personal thing. I'm probably standing on a few toes, and maybe there's people going, "Oh, you're a fucking self-righteous asshole." But I think if you're going to serve it and go to the jungle and connect with it, and collect the medicine, sit with the medicine, sit with the frog, and actually just really, I mean, you have all these people in the West now running around calling themselves shamans, and in the jungle, they go spend 12 months in solitude in the jungle, drinking a plant before they connect with that plant. And here you can run off somewhere and spend 2 weeks with a bunch of people and serve Kambo a bunch of times. Then suddenly you're a facilitator. And it's like, well, sure. If that's how you want to do it, because that's the opportunity that you have, fantastic, learn that way, but then make it a priority to go to the jungle. So this same guy that would serve basically anybody that was called, he was incredibly intelligent and was one of the biggest advocates for Kambo kind of on all the forums around the world, and it was very well known. And I was at this dinner, and one of the Peruvian guys was like, look, some of the elders are a little concerned that everybody can serve the medicine now. And this guy himself was training people. The guy that would serve other people, serve everybody, he was training other people, and he had never been to the jungle himself. And the people that he was training were not going to the jungle. And his thought, or his line of response was, how do you know that the people that are serving the medicine haven't spent the last 20 lives as shamans? And it's like, it's a great philosophy, and maybe there is some instinct and there is some intuition which allows these people to serve medicine because on a deeper level they know and they understand. But for me, if you're going to train with any of this stuff, you need to go to the source. And I've seen people now offering online ayahuasca ceremonies, and it's just like
they mail you the cups, and that's weird.
Exactly. And you're on Zoom and they're playing medicine. It's like,
that's weird.
It's become a money-making thing, and it's detrimental. It's detrimental to the medicine. It's detrimental to the tradition that actually kind of saved it and honored it and brought it and allowed it to be brought to the West. The medicine needs to be here. We need the healing, but it needs to be done properly. And just by churning out as many practitioners as you can who tick the box on a little exam at the end of 2 weeks, it's like, for me, that's it's missing something. So yeah, I'm sure that if there's anybody from the IAKP listening, they might be upset, but fuck it. That's just how I feel.
I love it. Well, there is a piece too of like, do your research. And this is whether it's for a coach, a therapist, a doctor, whoever you're hiring to facilitate something in your own body, is to make sure you're not hiring a charlatan or someone who hasn't had proper training, and that has your safety on top of mind versus trying to push you to do more, whatever, whether it's money-based or their ego or whatever. But yeah, be your own advocate for your for your own health and your body when researching this stuff. And yeah, as you said, it is a very powerful medicine, and not fucking around with that is, and your own health and safety is super important. So do your research. Well, Nic, thank you for being here today. And how can people find you online, or if you are hosting Kambo sessions, where can they find you and get a hold of you?
So Instagram at Nic Warner, NIC Warner, like Warner Brothers, or nicwarner.com are the two places where I am predominantly. I do have sessions. I'm in Berlin, but I just got back from Munich where we hosted a weekend there. So I do travel, but just reach out. I also have my Kambo website, which is kambo-sagrado.com. So KAMBO-SAGRADO. If you're looking for Kambo information, this is a website that has everything you need and nothing you don't. So it can tell you what to expect, how to prepare, the diet that you should follow. A lot of the websites or a lot of the videos online, there's just a whole lot of fear involved and a whole lot of misinformation and a whole lot of ignorance. And so I've kind of, I mean, it's a few years old now, but the website it kind of has everything that you need to know if you are interested.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's where, when I was researching, there was not a lot out there. So I'm excited to check that out too. So thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.